Hello all and welcome, and I am the MGTOW philosopher, and in this video I would like to discuss a story about the BBC celebrating inspirational radical feminists. Of course! Because you can't celebrate men, but you must celebrate women. When's the last time any special was done celebrating men in any way, shape, or form? Zero? I've never seen one on TV. Why are women getting celebrated so much, and men, nobody talks about men except in negative terms? That's quite annoying. So the story begins, BBC celebrates inspirational radical feminist who believes regret is rape. That's nice. And campaigned against recognizing male victims of abuse. Of course! Because if you campaign for men who are being abused, you're admitting that men get abused too, and that destroys your narrative. And of course, in your mind, if there's help going to male abuse victims, that's less help for women. Of course! Because it's all a zero-sum game, didn't you know? Oh boy, this should be an interesting article. You may have had the misfortune of seeing the BBC 100 Women campaign. No, I didn't have that misfortune, thank God. All over the BBC website recently. This scheme is another form of feminist activism by the supposedly impartial BBC. How can it be impartial when the entire system is structured around feminist ideas and Marxist ideas? The entire institution is a feminist one. So they're not impartial in any way, shape, or form. Where they select 100 inspirational women in a unique celebration of female talent. Oh, but that's fine. Well, you know, all you feminists are about equality, right? So why don't you have next week a special that is 100 of the most inspirational men? Yeah. Oh, we can't do that. We can only celebrate women. If we celebrate men too, that would be too close to being equal. We can't. We're not about equality, really. We just say that for the dumb mouth breathers who continue to just believe whatever we tell them. Because they're dumb mouth breathers. Okay. The BBC 100 Women has run for several years, and yet no mention of inspirational men. Now, and they even continued writing articles for it on November 19th, International Men's Day. Really? Of course they weren't writing anything about men on International Men's Day. That's very interesting. In the context of toilets for women on what is also World Toilet Day. While the BBC did cover the International Men's Day debate in Parliament 5 days earlier, it again failed to mark the actual event in any way on the day itself. Gee, that's so interesting. Don't talk about men. Don't acknowledge men exist in any way. Don't celebrate them. Don't say anything kind about them. Just very interesting. You would think that to gain equality, that it would be all about representing both equally, but oh no, it's about knocking men down a peg or three and elevating women. Because, of course, that's the only way they can achieve some form of equality. Thus, the BBC preferences commemoration of World Toilet Day ahead of International Men's Day. So the BBC was talking about World Toilet Day more than it was International Men's Day. Are you listening to this, men? Are you listening to this? This is why the UK is one of the top 5 cucked countries on planet Earth in regards to the Western world. Well, which would mean it's probably one of the top 5 cucked ones anywhere, because although third world countries are far behind us technologically, they're far ahead of us in terms of controlling their women so those women don't destroy their cultures. Goes on to say, we have no idea as to the activities and merits of a lot of the names on the BBC 100 Women, but one name did stick out amongst all the rest, that of radical feminist Liz Kelly. In addition to regarding Kelly as inspirational, the BBC describes her as one of the world's leading sociologists on violence against women. Sadly, sociology is a bullshit subject that doesn't really exist. It's not an academic subject. It's nonsense. It was created by the Frankfurt School, okay, to push socialism and socialist ideas. In fact, the BBC loves Kelly so much that its BBC 100 Women's press release features her as the 17 names highlighted out of the 100. So in other words, they regard her as simply not only being one of the 100 most inspirational women in the world, but even in their top 17. Ooh, well, there you go. That tells you a lot about England. The reason we knew of Kelly's name is due to some famous quotes she's known for in her publication, The Hidden Gender of Law. Of course, we all know that the law favors women over men. There is no clear distinction between consensual sex and rape. Very, very interesting. Now, how does that work exactly? So, she sounds like that Dworkin broad. For those of you who may not know who Dworkin was, she was a radical feminist, and she hated men, and she suggested all women go lesbo and become muff munchers because that's preferable to being with a man. By the way, she was a big fat sow who would probably never been with a man, and no man would ever want her sloppy fat ass. But a continuum of pressure, threat, coercion, and force. Interesting. I'd love to hear her arguments about how consensual sex and rape are somehow the same thing. I bet it wouldn't make any sense at all. This line of thinking is worryingly close to the most extremist line of feminism. Close? What do you mean close? That's pretty extreme. I think that's the most extreme form of feminist thought you could possibly come to. That's got to be, I mean, come on. Consensual sex and rape the same in that they believe all heterosexual sex is rape. Well, didn't she just say that? She just said consensual sex and rape are the same. So, yeah. Please. Quite all the way there. This has got a lot of spelling errors, too. I'm trying to correct them as I read. However, Kelly reinforces such an idea on the... What is with this? I'm trying to read this thing, and there's spelling errors and grammar errors. Hey, people, can't you edit your own fucking work? Don't publish something on your online rag if you don't know how to fucking write and edit something. You pinhead motherfuckers. I gotta fucking correct your grammar and spelling errors as I'm reading. You fucking idiots. However, Kelly reinforces such an idea on the following page of the same book, suggesting that all women experience sexual violence at some point in their lives. Oh, really? All women? She's psychic now. She's in touch with all women on the planet. So for Kelly, her views are so extreme that even manufactured and exaggerated statistics on rape and abuse are insufficiently alarmist. They're insufficiently alarmist. And the true figure is 100% of women. 1 in 1. Wow. How is this crazy fruitcake broad who ought to be wearing a tin fucking hat and talking about how she got abducted by aliens? How's she getting on this BBC's 100 most inspirational women list? What the fuck is going on here? This, more than anything else, should tell you that fucking the UK, all their positions of power in the media and education and government have been infiltrated by cockeyed, wacky feminists. Furthermore, though not stated explicitly, the clear inference to be taken from her argument that all women experience sexual violence is, of course, that all, or at least the overwhelming majority of men are rapists or sexual abusers. And yes, well, by inference, that would have to be true. And yes, we're supposed to be celebrating this kind of hateful thinking. Kelly's further works include equally disturbing and harmful ideas. Her publication, Surviving Sexual Violence, defines sexual violence as including any physical, visual, verbal, sexual... What? Oh, that's everything. So physical, okay. Smack you across the face. All right. Visual. What is that? Wait, what? Sexual violence. How can sexual violence be visual? You mean just looking at something? So I look at you. That's violence. Unless I look like Brad Pitt, of course, and I want you to look at me. Then it's not violence. But if you're a big fat slob and you have no money and you look like a loser and you're looking at me, oh, I'm offended because why isn't the good guy looking guy looking at me? Why is this ugly toad of a man looking at me? Oh, he's offended me. Now it's violence. Verbal? Well, of course, this is the trigger warning culture and words equal physical action or sexual act. Well, that's everything. Okay, interesting. That is experienced by the woman or girl, but not by men. Because, of course, a woman, in her estimation, can't do anything wrong. And that includes sexually assaulting a man. That's not possible. Right. Like you can't be racist toward white people. At the time or later is a threat, invasion, or assault that has the effect of hurting her or degrading her. Degrading her? Everything degrades women these days. They're all such pussy wimps with they get the thinnest skins on earth. Her and or takes away her ability to control. Well, this is the vaguest language I ever seen. Could you be any more vague there in the end? So, firstly, Kelly is so sexist that she thinks only women and girls can be a victim of sexual violence. Well, of course! Thus throwing all male victims under the bus. Yeah, male victims don't exist. Of course not. Secondly, she thinks these women and girls should be able to withdraw consent retrospectively. Right, so they can use rape or allegations of sexual assault to get back at a guy for hurting her feelings, which is also some kind of violence, so it's perfectly justified to use one lie to enforce another perceived truth. Very interesting. Wendy McElroy also criticized Kelly's definition, describing it as disastrously subjective. Nah, women being subjective? Oh, come on. Noting regret is not a benchmark of consent. Well, to the modern-day feminist it is. That's why you should go your own way. So what are the real consequences of Kelly's lines of thought? I can see numerous ones. Kelly's demonization of men is obviously unpleasant. That's not the adjective I would be using. It's far beyond unpleasant. But the bigger thrust of her definitions is to infantilize women. Yeah, what is it? Women are supposed to be these strong, equal creatures. They're supposed to be on the same level as men. So why are they so weak? This is the contradiction, of course, of feminism. It preaches on one hand that women are equal to men and is equally strong and can take what a man can take and do what a man can do. But clearly, it also infantilizes these women and treats them like babies. How strong is a baby? Not very. It infantilizes women as helpless victims, which has consequences for how young or impressionable women might view themselves and how those who subscribe to Kelly's nonsense view women too. In a very contrary way, obviously. The deliberate marginalization, elimination of the huge number of male victims makes it incredibly difficult for even male victims raped by other men to be recognized. Let alone male victims raped by women, which happens just as much as rapes of men, except you don't hear it reported because usually the male victims are underage. That's why we keep seeing all these cases that the media tries to hide or minimize in the media of these female teachers, who are the majority of teachers, by the way, who are abusing young boys. As for the even greater number of men raped by women, they are eliminated twice over. Firstly, in her definition, but also via the implied men as rapists, women as victims line of thought. In denying their existence, she further discourages them from coming forward, a group already incredibly reluctant to do so. Right, so her little narrative feeds into stopping men from reporting women as abusers, thereby enfranchising women even more so as being only victims, never perpetrators. So they can pretty much get away with whatever they want, which is why you see them getting no jail time in court so often and reduced sentences and suspended sentences. The judge just can't bring himself to see her as an actual perpetrator. Kelly can't even bring herself to define sexual abuse as something that happens to males. Well, of course not. Then she would have to see that her narrative is total bullshit because it's so extreme in and of itself. I mean, her narrative would be totally blown out of the water if she was like, okay, so some males are the victims of sexual abuse. Well, your whole narrative says that that can't happen. So yeah, it's very difficult for her to see men as victims. And thus the idea of female perpetrator is even more alien still. Thus her rhetoric makes it, yeah, gee, that's real good. Let half the population get away with whatever they want. And not a good idea. It's not smart to be able to have one half of your population get off, do whatever they want, have no consequences to their actions. Yeah, I think that could possibly destroy your society. Yeah. Thus, her rhetoric makes the already very difficult task of bringing female perpetrators to justice even harder. No shit. Perhaps above all else, Kelly seeks to create confusion around the issues of consent and her dangerous idea that regret is rape. It can only lead to false allegations that innocent men being put on trial and ultimately imprisoned or having their lives ruined. Good Lord. And she's one of the top most 100 inspirational women in Britain. How? You may well, they only care what women think. Of course. Mainly, they only care what crazy, left-wing, rabid feminist women think. And this tells you just who is in control of the media in Britain. You may well be thinking that Kelly's theories are just that, and her wider work is separate to any writing and thus perhaps worth celebrating. Alternatively, Alternatively, seen as the quotes in question are from the late 80s, perhaps there's a chance Kelly has turned over a new leaf or at least become less misandrist as she has aged. For those of you who don't know what misandrist is, she's a man-hater. Well, regular readers may well remember one of our most high-profile campaigns, which was to try to gain recognition from male victims of domestic violence from Northumbria police in a campaign against their misleading and sexist posters, which only mentioned female victims and male abusers. Vera Baird's office and other taxpayer-funded radical feminists organized to try and support sexism, and in particular sought to rig a newspaper poll in order to give the misleading impression that the public thought it was okay to discriminate against male victims of domestic violence. Our campaign helped to secure a huge victory with the posters withdrawn due to the outcry, and of course the final poll result noted the posters were sexist too. So how does Kelly fit in? Well, consistent with her previous writing and discrimination against male victims of sexual abuse, she wanted to see the discrimination against male victims of domestic violence continue. And we caught her campaigning on Twitter for people to vote in favor of marginalizing male victims. So in other words, Kelly is someone who is directly opposed. Yeah, of course. Now, I can't read the rest because it doesn't make sense. Kelly is someone who is directly opposed, very own pro-equality. Oh, God. Learn to write, motherfucker! Kelly is opposed so essentially she hates men and is against men, and there can't be male victims because, meh, equality, but meh, superiority, really. How? So, for those of you out there who still believe feminism is some kind of movement about equality, it's never been about equality. It's always been about securing superiority, okay? The whole equality line is just something that's repeated again and again and again to get you to believe it. It pops in your head. Feminism, equality, okay. You don't even question it. And then you hear these contrary statements and you don't even see the contradiction. No, feminism is evil. Feminism is about female superiority and kicking men in the nads to make them less able to compete with women. And at the same time, it is about women giving themselves the power to punish us evil men for the so-called millennia that we have oppressed them. Go your own way, gentlemen. Trust me, it's the wiser choice. I am the MGTOW philosopher. Please like, subscribe, and donate to my Patreon if you could. Take care and have a nice day.